Hello there, Gregory Carlson here. Let's do part 4 of section 2.7. This last one requires a lot of concentration. It's pretty tricky. Here's a parent graph. Notice it's a piecewise, whoops, sorry, I lost my focus. Notice that graph is a piecewise function because it's a line at first, and then it's a constant for a little while, and then it's a line with positive slope again. So this is g of x right here. And so we're going to graph these 4 transformations of this graph. So I'm going to do the first one here, the second one here, the third one here, and the fourth one here. So let's do the first one. Y equals g of negative x. Remember, when we replace x with negative x, that reflects it across the y-axis. So it reflects it across the y-axis. So here's how I would do that. I would start with this flat piece because that's kind of my anchor. Do you see how the flat piece moves 1 to the right? Well, if it's reflected across the y-axis, it's going to move 1 to the left. So I'll put that little line right there. Can you see that? And so now this line coming down like this, let me think about this really carefully. Actually, let's do this line coming up. Do you see how this line coming up is attached on the end here, away from the axis? So it has a slope of up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So now it's going to be up 1 over 1 in the other direction, like that. So you see it got turned around. Now this part was attached to the axis coming down, and so it's going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. So we need to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Notice this point right here got reflected to here. So we have a point right here. So down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. So hopefully you see that we've reflected this across the x-axis. It flipped like this. I started with the flat piece, and then I attached the piece that was grabbed on here to here, here to here is here to here. Kind of tricky. It is a little tricky. This one will be easier. We're shifting it x minus 4 spaces. We're inside the parentheses, and so that means we're moving left or right. And we move in the opposite direction, so we move in the positive direction 4 spaces. So if we're moving in the positive direction 4 spaces, this little line right here gets moved 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should move to right there. So instead of being here, it should go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that little line is right here now. And that's it. Everything else in the graph stays the same. This point would move over 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'd have a point right here. Notice the slope is up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, just like before. And this should be up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, just like before. So the entire thing just got shifted 4 spaces to the right. That's all that happened there. How about this one? We were putting in a negative g of x. When we're putting a negative sign in front of a graph, that means we're flipping it up or down. We're flipping it above or below the x-axis. In other words, we're reflecting it across the x-axis because essentially what we did, if you move this negative sign over here, we've essentially made y negative y, which means we're reflecting over the x-axis. So this flat piece right here is going to come down here. And they're going to flip. It helps if you're a visual thinker. They're going to flip. So instead of coming down like this, it's going to come up. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And this is going to start traveling down now. So down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. So you can see that we've flipped it over the x-axis, which has kind of turned it upside down. Notice that's different than flipping it over the y-axis, because you see the little flat part, that got turned this way. So this was a reflection over the y-axis. This one was a reflection over the x-axis. Finally, the last one, we're flipping it over the x-axis and then moving it down 3 spaces, because this minus 3 is on the outside, so we're moving up or down, and since it's negative, we go with that, it's down 3. Now we just graphed negative g of x, so rather than doing that again, let's just go off of this one, because here's negative g of x, and now we're just going to shift that down 3 spaces. So we've already done some of the work. So this line right here is going to go down 3 spaces. So instead of here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 right here. Okay, and then it's basically going to look exactly like this. So a slope of down 1 over 1, and a slope going of -1 over here too. So there you go. So we kind of used the fact that we'd already graphed negative g of x. You see, we'd already graphed that, so now we're just bumping this graph down 3 spaces. So that's how you would shift a piecewise function. You see that my strategy for doing it is to just shift one piece of the graph at a time and then make sure they all connect and make sense. So it takes a little bit of playing with it to get the right answer. Notice I started with the flat section because that to me was the easiest one to move around. That is section 2.7, transformations. Thanks for hanging in there. 2.8 is really cool and important because it's going to talk about composite functions. It's actually our last section for chapter 2, so I will see you at 2.8.